Hey, real estate fans, Pete here. I want to talk about the agency agreement, which is the document that allows me as a buyer's agent to negotiate on your behalf and discloses the process to you as the buyer. So I'm going to go through the highlights of this, areas I've checked boxes. This is not a substitute for reading it. It's not a substitute for maybe meet with me online or in person or to call and have questions about it. So ask anything you want. This serves as just an outline to understand the spirit of the document and kind of what we're going to be thinking about going forward. So, again, this is about buyer agency to me. This is about me helping you and being your advocate for you. I am almost never a transaction broker, and we would have to make some changes for that to happen if we wanted to, but it's not my favorite thing. So I prefer to be your advocate. Anything you tell me is doctor-patient confidentiality. Anything I share to the rest of the world through an offer or communicating with title is something you've approved. So just know what you tell me stays between us. Um, I work for a multiple person firm. The buyer's name, you would be in here. This is my company and me. I can work with any property within Colorado. Competition of days will roll over. This just means that if there is a date or a deadline that ends on a weekend or holiday, that deadline automatically is extended to the next business day, which is helpful when dealing with title or lending. Brokerage relationship. I'm going to give you the short answer, which is I'm only ever your buyer agent. There are reasons that people change into other forms of agency, and honestly, if we get there, we'll talk about it, but the odds of that happening are microscopic. So again, what you tell me is doctor-patient confidentiality. Brokerage duties is a great section. I like to think about it as a Scouts pledge if you're ever born Girl Scouts, basically what a good agent should do. And again, it's all about telling you everything I learned about the market or the property or the process or any history I can help you with. 100% of that. And then obviously what goes out from us to anyone else is something we've talked about. This is a good section to read. I like it. The compensation. Typically, the buyer is the listing agent and seller lists 2.8% of the sales price as compensation to the buyer's agent, me, and that is paid by the listing agent seller. There are other ways for agents to get paid. I don't ever use these. And this is an interesting one. So, listing brokerage firm, the seller side, or the seller may pay me, but buyer's obligated to pay. So, what this means is that the 2.8% here, there are people listing significantly less amounts of income or compensation, co-op it's called, to a buyer's agent. If I have this checked, I have every right to go back to the seller listing agent and say, look, these guys are on the hook to pay this difference between what you're offering, the 2.8%, and I can push for that number. I will say this, though, I have never needed to use it, and this is only a bit of leverage if in the event we come to a tricky deal where this needs to be talked about. I have never needed to use it and have certainly made less than 2.8% on a buyer transaction in the past. So this is there for leverage, but again, I've never needed to use it. We can talk about this as you have questions, but this is typically what my office wants me to check here. Again, a buyer has never paid me a penny in 15 years for my co-op. So we can talk more about that as you have questions. I talk about it because it's an interesting subject and hard to, and it's an interesting, I don't know, complicated subject within this agency. And then holdover period means that, let's say you love the property we saw together in January and our agency ended, let's say January 31st, and February 7th, you get a raise. And you're just like, you know what? We saw that property last month. I know our contract expired, the agency contract, but I'd still like to buy it. This allows us to apply CPR to revive this agency so that basically, because I was your agent when we saw this, for up to 30 days after the fact, I can still be your agent for this particular transaction. The reality is, if we're continually shopping and this date has lapsed, we'll just do a new agreement. But this is a built-in, like, oh my gosh, I do want that property, and our agency expired. I never needed this, but that's what that is. We have a checkbox that you're not part of an agency agreement with another agent. There are people that will shop in multiple areas. So you could be shopping in, let's say, Colorado Springs and Denver, and we would deal with that separately and have an agency agreement that defines the areas that I will work and the other agent will work. We'll talk about that if it happens. I don't do any special services beyond typical agency services on the buy side. And I don't have any restrictions to showing properties. However, there are best practices. And so we need notice for weekends. Sundays and Mondays are not great days because homes are typically going away on those periods. But if I can't show a home and I've got some notice, I've got agents that will show homes for me. So the short story is just ask and we'll figure out a way to get you in a house in a way that makes sense for you. And then I will I will find properties to the MLS, and I also do off-market stuff. So there's lots of opportunities, but for the most part, referencing homes will come from the MLS. I do not have your permission to disclose your identity to third parties. However, when we send an accepted offer into the title company, they will certainly see your name. And the listing agent seller will see your name and email in this process too. Wire fraud is something worth talking about. I haven't had it happen to me or my clients yet, but around closings, wire fraud has been a source of fraud because criminals are finding people's bank IDs and account numbers so that in the wire transfers for a closing, money's getting redirected. In short, never send your account information to anyone over email. We will always have you call in. Some basic mediation attorney's fees. I haven't had to deal with those, so I'll skip over it. And then buyer stands, other agents may help me show houses, and we'll talk about that as we get there. You may need to see a house on a Thursday night when I have appointments already, but I want you to get in, so I find someone to help us figure that out. And then you're not obligated to buy a house or buy a house with me by signing this agreement. So at any point, buyer or agent may terminate this contract with written notice to the other party. So just know that this document's important, and it has to be in place for me to be able to negotiate on behalf. But just because you sign it doesn't mean you have to buy a house or stick with me if you think I don't know what I'm doing. So doesn't usually happen that this gets executed. I want to let you know that's why that's in there. And that's the exciting stuff. If you've got questions about this, let me know. I'll be sending you at some point a copy of this to sign, and we can either talk over the phone, email questions, obviously Zoom call's the big thing, or just meet in person. So however you want to learn this stuff, let me know. Thanks for watching.